Curtis Calhoun here with MMA News, and my next guest is another big fight coming up at the 2023 PFL World Championship. Aspen Ladd joining me today. How's it going, Aspen?
Really good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time, especially, with this fight coming together last minute. Kind of first thoughts. So let's start right there. Like, how did this fight come together? Obviously, it's been a really exciting, kind of hectic week with the fight announcement and all that. Kind of just keep me up to date on that and how pumped you are for this opportunity.
Oh, I'm super excited. So it wasn't outside the realm of possibility as far as what we thought could happen, like just in case we were still preparing for that date. But yeah, we got the call on late last Friday night. But at that point, they still weren't sure if Julia was fighting or if Julia wasn't fighting. So they're basically like testing the waters with us and getting us ready to go kind of thing. Like you never know with that. So obviously we accepted, but we didn't find out until I think, the day the news broke, like a couple hours before then is when everybody agreed to it. And it's like, all right, the fight's going forward. So yeah, late last Friday night.
Have you been preparing for a fight like for the last month or two, just in case like a potential opponent came together, or was this kind of the plan all along in terms of preparing in case a fight came to fruition, or how long have you been preparing for this kind of opportunity?
Yes, no, we were still preparing for this date just in case, but PFL is very, very cool. So I didn't want to be inactive for a long period of time. And we were actually like basically the backup for something to happen for this fight up until like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And then as long as they approved it, I had permission to go do some other kind of combat sport thing within a period of time, as long as they approved it. So they're willing to play ball like that. And it's really cool. So I was staying prepared for this date just in case, and then prepared to go do something else too. And then this just ended up happening like this, and everything worked out.
Was it a submission grappling event, or what was kind of the other thing, if you can tell us about it? Like, what was
We were
kind of the other thing?
boxing actually,
Oh,
but
cool.
yeah, submission grappling too. We are looking at just anything in that time period because they are awesome and willing to let you do things as long as obviously they approve. But it has to be in a very specific little window because you got to be ready for next season. So trying to find something in that time period, we're looking at several options.
Yeah, and especially with the PFL, it's like there's no real argument for a low activity level, right? Especially being in the
No.
season format, quick turnarounds in between fights. Like as a fighter, like how nice is that for you, not having to worry about like, hey, like when is my next fight going to get booked or anything like that?
Oh, I love it. And I love, like, 100% when the season starts, you're going to be in it. With me, this last couple months was a little bit different, obviously, because it's like, well, I might be fighting the 24th, I might not be fighting the 24th, but then also them being willing to play ball is like, hey, I don't want to take that long off. Can I do something as long as you guys say it's okay? And they're willing to do that, which is cool.
Has boxing been something you've wanted to do for a long time, or how did that kind of come to fruition?
Yes, it has. But obviously, with most promotions, especially in MMA, you don't have the ability to go and do that and still be within your contract and do everything you need to do. But the seasonal format of PFL and the fact that they're willing to entertain things like that, it allows you more abilities. Like, we're not just MMA fighters, we're allowed to be prize fighters, we're allowed to go do different kinds of things.
And on that topic, did you get a chance to watch Francis Ngannou Tyson Fury? If so, what did you think of the fight?
I thought that he'd won it, honestly. I think when it's a close split decision like that and somebody has the more damaging things, which he did, it should go to that guy. But yeah, I think he did better than anybody on planet Earth thought he was going to, and he shut a lot of people up.
No doubt about that. And, let's talk a little bit about the stylistic matchup. Obviously, this is a fight with Kayla Harrison. A lot of attention, a lot of eyes on it. How pumped are you for this opportunity specifically to face Kayla Harrison? And has this been a fight that you've kind of thought about ever since you signed with the PFL?
Very much so. It was something I was very excited about, and we've asked for the fight before. Like, I was in the running for it months ago. Like, so we knew it was down between Julia and myself. It's like, well, you can just book us now, guys, because something could happen, but it didn't happen that way, and it happened this way. But yeah, no, obviously, as soon as you sign with PFL, that is the fight on your radar, and something you should be preparing for regardless.
When you look at this fight specifically, obviously Kayla Harrison has a big name and all that stuff too. Obviously super skilled, a really exciting challenge, I'm sure, for you. But in terms of asking for this kind of opportunity and having this on your radar, like what specifically excites you about this specific opportunity?
There's a few names that are very, very accomplished in the sport, and she is one of them. She's got a name, she's got a great record, and she is known to be excellent in what she does. So when you go out and fight somebody like that, it elevates you both.
Absolutely. And specifically in fight camp, like, do you kind of attain your fight camp specifically to an opponent? Like, do you tailor it to an opponent, or do you kind of focus on like your personal skill set and improvement? Or how do you kind of tailor, especially with a short notice opportunity like this?
So we stay ready regardless, or at least this is what I tend to do. Stay ready and focus on what you do, and then you're able to like fine tune like the finer points of it. So if you're ready regardless, and if you're focusing on what things you do well and then improving just your own stuff, your own game, when you get the opponent, you're able to work on those certain details. I said certain things that pertain to them to the most, but it's like stay ready, and then you'll have the opportunity to do the little things.
And with this being your first PFL season, I got to ask you, like, in terms of your expectations versus how the season played out, like, was it more difficult than you expected? Was it a little bit more smooth? Like, kind of just talk to me a little bit about what this whole first PFL season experience has been like for you.
Getting used to the point system is definitely interesting, and that'll be definitely more on the forefront going into next year. It's like every single fight, you got to try to max out the points regardless, because you never know how they're going to go. Yeah. So that was, it's a learning curve as far as that part of it. As far as the difficulty, all that, honestly, it was great. Like, physically, you're fighting all the time. You're staying ready all the time. But it wasn't any worse than you're waiting by the phone forever, trying to get a call. You're never knowing when you're going to fight. I knew each time. And it's just trying not to get hurt between those time periods. But no, it was great. And I like that format. I like staying busy. And it worked out well.
And as a fighter specifically who's been through, the point system and the season format, I feel like PFL's point system, it's like either you hear people that love it or you hear people that hate it. And, there's not really a lot of, gray area or in between. Like, what are your thoughts specifically on the point system? Like, was that a huge adjustment for you in terms of like, seeing where you are in the standings and moving up in the hierarchy and all that?
It's definitely interesting because it can lead to like weird, like the last ones, for example. You had a couple of chicks that had done very well for one fight, and then they got absolutely murdered in the next two, like first round quickly. And it can lead to like some bizarre mismatches like that. So I like it. I think it's just different. It's not even a like or a dislike. It is a different thing to get used to.
Well, and especially with your last fight too, because I think you just narrowly missed the PFL postseason. I think you missed it just barely off of like a tiebreaker or something like that. Like, especially off of your last fight, like, what was kind of the aftermath like of that fight? Because obviously you'd put on a great performance, but you don't know when your next fight is going to be, obviously, because you missed the postseason. So what was that kind of experience like for you?
That was an interesting night because they had messed up and announced it too, but I knew because I'd done the math in my head. It's like, and I was tied for the point. They decided for how they did the tiebreaker to give it to the other person. So obviously it's disappointing, but it's like, all right, there's nothing we can do about it. Get ready for the next one. And that's what we did.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you, like, specifically with your career, and we've talked before. I think we've talked at a couple of press conferences, pre-fight press conferences and stuff like that. You've talked a lot about kind of, the weight that's been lifted off of your shoulders, like not having to worry as much about the cut down to 135 when you were in the UFC and all that stuff. Like, what are some of the biggest improvements that you feel like you've made in your overall game this year that you can look forward into 2024 and beyond?
being able to train 24/7 again and not get injured all the time, not always be in a dieting 24/7. I mean, obviously you're staying healthy, you have to, but it's just a different level, because for me to make 35s or even attempt to, I had to be so stringent and so in a deficit 24/7. When you're able to just train and enjoy it and enjoy life again, it makes a huge impact on everything else.
And then in terms of looking ahead, obviously, you know, the new year is right around the corner. So it's like 1 year from today, where do you want your life and your career to be? Like, what are some of your goals for yourself in terms of like your life, your career, in and out of the cage, and all that stuff?
Well, a year from now, I'd like to be doing just about this exact thing, probably talking to you and getting ready to go into the championships. That would be my goal for this time next year. And as far as personal life, everything is so wrapped up in career for me. I'm happy regardless. Like, I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with what I'm doing. And I love what I'm doing as far as a job goes and what I'm getting to do. So I think that would be my goal for next year at this time.
And something I want to ask you about too, just a couple more questions for me. Once again, I really do appreciate the time. I know taking the short out notice opportunities, there's a lot going on, but something that you and I have in common is that we're both into hiking and going outdoors. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, so I know all about the benefits of hiking and being outside and all that. Like, as an athlete, like, how cathartic and how relaxing is it for you to have that time outdoors to yourself to explore? Like, how big of an impact do you feel like that has on you in terms of like your mental health and all that?
Oh, huge. I don't do well when I haven't been able to get out for a while. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Hey you, shush. Yeah, no, for me, it's huge. Like, I need that to balance myself. Crazy. Good job. Good job.
So is it kind of like a thing about balance for you in terms of you know, your life and your career and kind of finding that work-life balance?
Yes. Like, you can't just be 100% all the time gung-ho. I mean, I'm kind of nuts and I like to be active all the time. So for me, that works. But I need to have something where it's not in the gym. It's not fighting another person, thinking about my upcoming fights. You just kind of have like a blank box. You have to go enjoy something else.
Absolutely. And last question for me, what's your message to the PFL fans, your own personal fans ahead of this fight? Obviously, a really exciting time for you in your life and your career. I'll give you the final word before we wrap things up.
I have some really awesome fans. Like, social media in general can be not the nicest, not the greatest, but there's a good aspect to it too. There's some decent humans out there. And for all the ones that are halfway decent or at least super decent, you can look forward to a great fight. And the ones that aren't, go have a very not nice day. Anyway, yeah.
I got you. Well, Aspen, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. I have a feeling we'll definitely catch up again sometime soon. Thank you so much for the time, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.